Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. As part of your strategy series today, we'll be discussing a very important subject which is art and culture for mains examination and what is the strategy to cover it, what are the sources. As you know, we have already covered art and culture for prelims. That's a separate issue altogether. Today we need to understand how do you cover it for mains. So first you need to understand that there's a differentiation. The fact that ancient, medieval, art and culture, world history, modern India, and post-independence have separate purposes. These two are specific to prelims exam, these two are specific to mains exam, and these two are specific to prelims and mains both. Which means that art and culture cannot be ignored as a subject because it is extremely important because it is coming in both. But there's a difference in which you cover art and culture for mains and art and culture for prelims. Now the point is, unlike art and culture for prelims where there's no clarity, for mains there is much more clarity in the syllabus of GS paper 1. What does it say? It says Indian culture will cover the salient aspects of art forms, literature, architecture from ancient to modern times. Which means that now we have a timeline, ancient to modern. We also know that architecture, literature and art forms such as dances are emphasized upon. Now, this also means that architecture is a major chunk which you need to learn. There's another implied concept which I have been emphasizing in separate videos itself, that you cannot do art and culture without understanding ancient medieval. Because when you'll be writing the introduction for any of the art and culture questions, you would need the basic residual knowledge which ancient and medieval will give you. So the introduction mostly will be the historical context. And for the historical context itself, you need the understanding of ancient and medieval because you would not even know where that specific subject or where that specific topic is in the timeline of history. As we know, the basic structure of a mains question or an answer would be introduction, body, conclusion. Don't have to write it in the exam, but the introduction will always be the historical context. The body will be about the question, what it is asking, and conclusion will either be agreeing, disagreeing, or emphasizing on what the question is talking about. The point is, ancient medieval is always important because that is the historical context. Please don't leave ancient medieval and then believe that you can do art and culture. It will become extremely hard. Books like Nitin Singhania will not make sense without covering ancient medieval itself. So, how many questions are coming in the mains exam over a period of time? That gives us an understanding of its importance. So in 2015 till 2021, we are saying from 2 to 4 to 4 to 1 to 1. It is from 2 to 4 questions are coming in the exam. 2 to 4 questions are very significant. When you can top the exam with a difference of 5 to 6 marks, a question of 15 marks can be make or break, which means that if you have 15 to 30 marks and sometimes as high as 60 marks in the hand when it comes to art and culture, you have to attempt all the important questions of art and culture. And now, through the nature of the question, we'll try to analyze that. I'll try to tell you how to cover it. The point is, this analysis gives us an understanding that art and culture cannot be ignored as a subject. More than that, it is consistently coming in the examination. So you need to be covering it very, very comprehensively. More than that, as it is a PT plus main subject, it automatically becomes important because if you are nailing it in the mains exam, you automatically will be able to do it in the prelims exam. So we have a question, evaluate the nature of the Bhakti literature and its contribution to Indian culture. This question is coming from Bhaktism and Sufism, very standard question. You can see, you can only write this answer if you know when the Bhakti movement happened. That is the medieval context of it. One in the 7th century AD or 7th century CE. Other in the 15th century CE. So you need to know about this difference. You need to talk about Bhakti literature and its contribution. So you need to know what is the milieu at that point of time, what is the socio-economic milieu. Thereby, you also need to create a concept in which, in the body, you would have to write how they removed caste barriers, how they removed the women and gendered issues, or they empowered women itself, how it was about brotherhood, it was about challenging the notions of the concept of controlled access to God, priestly knowledge, and how the depressed classes and the lower varnas were able to challenge the basics of the temple-based worship through the Bhakti movement. So the Bhakti movement itself becomes important. So this question is not a difficult question. It only needs an understanding of Bhakti literature and the Bhakti movement itself. If you know that the Bhakti movement is happening in two phases, Alavar Nayanar and then thereafter Kabir and all, you would know that there's a basic contour of social change which they're talking about. So this question is not difficult. It is just that it needs a basic understanding of Bhakti movement. So as I said, without the ancient and medieval context, you will not be able to write the introduction itself. So don't ignore that. Then another type of question, the rock cut architecture represents one of the most important sources of our knowledge of early art and history discussed. So this again is a very significant question because coming from architecture, which is already mentioned in the syllabus. Now what this means is, this question is not asking you facts. It's not asking you a specific period. It is asking you about a technique, which is rock cut architecture, a monolithic architecture, not structural, which is brick. Rock cut is cutting a rock itself. You need to talk about all the rock cut architecture which is available in history and how it adds to our knowledge. So you have to talk about caves, you have to talk about pillars, you have to talk about the raths and what are called the temples, and you have to talk about how these technically enrich our knowledge. And again, that cannot be done if you don't have the context of ancient medieval, the context in which they were created, and conclude by saying that it is a very important source of knowledge. Then we have another type of question coming from the sculpture part, which is again very standard. Highlight the Central Asian and Greco-Bactrian elements in Gandhara art. Again, simple. Why? Because this is a very standard thing which comes in the prelims exam also and comes in the mains exam also, wherein you have to talk about a comparative perspective. What are the elements in Gandhara art, such as the curly hair, elongated ears, the stoic face? You just have to highlight it. So this question again is based on basic NCERT level understanding. Last is another type of question which is analytical. Analytical, this would be very straightforward. This would be about analyzing art as a source. This would be about a specific period. This is about how you need to undercut the politics, which is early Buddhist stupa art, while depicting fort motifs and natives, successfully expounds Buddhist ideals. So it talks about how the stupa acts like an advertisement. It becomes a disseminating strategy where the stupas were placed. So it is also a pilgrimage site, but also a site which propounds or expounds the Buddhist ideology because of the Jatak stories on its railings and toranas. So in a way, this question is about realizing that does the stupa have just one purpose, which is art and culture? No, it has political purpose, thereby linking it with its ancient context. So when you look at the question itself, you will realize that the questions are not difficult, they're analytical. So if it is analytical, you need to know what themes to cover and how to cover them, and I'll tell you the strategy to do that. So what are the themes which are specifically important for mains? Architecture, obviously mentioned in the syllabus itself. Here, from ancient to modern, all aspects from Nagara Dravida Visara to cave to pillar to modern architecture, from the Delhi Sultanate period to the period of Mughals, everything related to Taj Mahal, everything is important. Paintings, Bhakti Sufi, very standard. Paintings, how it is developing. Bhakti Sufi movement, its contribution. Sculpture, the way Greco-Bactrian element came in, the Gupta school, the Sarnath school, standard things, comparative perspective between the Gandhara, Mathura and Amravati. Classical dances is important because there's a theory behind it, which is Lasya and Tandava. So it asks you to explain the basic elements of dance. Literature and foreign travelers, because they're actually alternative sources. So literature comes from time to time, Persian sources, foreign sources such as Chinese sources, Ceylonese sources. very basic things which are there in Nitin Singhania also and in NCRTs. But foreign travelers are extremely important. There's a chapter in the NCRT itself, extremely important in that regard. Indian philosophy, because again there's a theory part. Wherever there is some form of theory and conceptual understanding, mains question can be made. And Buddhism, Jainism is standard because of the ideology part. So remember one thing, wherever there is theory, wherever there is conceptual understanding or facts, that concept automatically becomes important, because mains questions can only be made when there is something related to theory. Theory means that you need to know the differences. There's some form of evolution. Factual questions cannot be asked in mains because you have to write 150, 250 words. So you need to know how to approach that in that regard. So now the sources. As we know, class 6th and 7th NCRTs have 2-3 chapters related to art and culture. You need to note these important arguments which are given in them. That what are they trying to talk about? They're talking about Hampi, they're talking about water resources, and then Nitin Singhania and an introduction to Indian art, class 11th NCRT of Fine Arts. Both part 1 and part 2 are important. But you can see for ancient and medieval, both the books are the same. When you will watch that video, you will see the books are the same. It's about how you cover it. In prelims, it's more about facts. But in mains, it's different. Remember, Nitin Singhania cannot be ignored. Don't have to make notes out of it, and I'll talk about what you do about it. But the point is, what is the strategy of coverage? How do you cover art and culture for mains? Here, you need to understand one thing. Because it is subjective, you need to know how to write answers. So, when you are going through the NCRTs, the new ones, you will note down the basic arguments, facts, and concepts. Then you will cover Nitin Singhania. You will not make notes from Nitin Singhania, but make it from the NCRTs, because Nitin Singhania is already written in a notes fashion. So once you've covered the NCRTs and once you've gone through Nitin Singhania once, which you will automatically for prelims, what do you do with this? What you do is that you create model answers. See, because there is only a limited scope of questions, Nagara, Dravida, Vesara, basic things can be asked out of these. What you do is that you make answers which are more than 250 words, maybe close to 500 words or 700 words. It can be 1000 words also. But you note down everything important related to that theme in a paragraph notes fashion. So what you've done is you've made a master answer. In the exam, if they ask you something specific, out of those 1000 words, maybe you can write the 250 which are relevant or the 150 which are relevant. Meaning, here you need to have a larger repository of important answers. So you know, for example, in architecture, in Mauryan period, they can only ask a question about either caves or pillars. So you make one answer for pillars, you make one answer for caves. The same way, you have the Dravida, Nagara and Vesara style. So you make basic 3 answers about their features, then make an answer about the comparative perspective. So in temple architecture, one answer would be about Nagara salient features, then Dravida salient features, then Vesara salient features, and then there would be one which is comparative, and then all your aspects are covered. This is how you go forward. You have to make master notes or answers which you will have to learn from time to time so that you can write it in the examination itself. So remember, the strategy here is covering NCRTs so to get a conceptual clarity foundation, then going to the basic book which is Nitin Singhania, and then what you do is that you compile both as a master answer repository. You are going to look at the books. You are going to note down each and every fact which you need to learn. And now that you have created this repository, you will practice 1 or 2 times in a week, learn these answers and write them down out of memory. By doing this, you are firstly learning, you are writing it down, and then you look which are the topics or basic facts I've missed. This in turn will create a very beautiful set of answers which you know by heart. You are also learning the conceptual aspects, you are learning the basic points also, and you are learning to write answers also. So it is helping you in answer writing, it is helping you in creating a repository, it is helping you creating notes which can be done quickly. Because you have 2 papers in the same day, maybe you are giving GS paper 1 in the morning, GS paper 2 in the evening. So you need things to quickly revise. These repositories will help. Don't think that you can read 5 books and then collate. If you believe that you can collate in the exam, it will take time. And because you have to write the answer within 7 to 8 minutes, you need to have clarity. As I can say, there will maximum be 3 to 5 aspects in each and every topic on which a question can be asked. If there are sub-themes, put in the effort, create the repository. If you are able to do that, you will never be able to stumble. So just to summarize before I end this session, ancient and medieval needs to be covered because introductions will be historical context. Can't do art and culture without ancient and medieval. Second, it's about creating model answers through the reading of NCERTs and Nitin Singhania. Don't make notes out of Nitin Singhania. Make good answers which you learn and practice. Practice as many questions as possible, and as PT and mains both is there, you will keep on adding more and more knowledge. The basic themes are different because they are specified in the syllabus itself. So I hope that now you're able to understand what your strategy is going to be. With this, I would like to thank you for your patience. I will see you in another video. Thank you so much. See you. Bye-bye.